Hi, hello, and welcome. It's been a while, and this is what we call a special edition of Harry Potter Abridged. I have a special guest.
Yeah, I'm a guest star.
You are. I mean, you're a star on your own, but you're also a guest. Even though I'm a guest in your home. Da-da-da-da. What?
Hello, this is Harry Potter Abridged. And today, we'll be abridging Harry Potter.
That's correct.
Together, like a well-oiled machine.
Yes, yeah, I mean, with the utmost efficiency.
And coherence.
And
yes.
coherence, that's right. It's been so long that you may have forgotten where we are, but we have ways to keep track of these things. So this is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, and the chapter we will be abridging today is entitled...
It is entitled, indeed.
It's not entitled, indeed. It's entitled The Whomping Willow.
That's true, too.
It is.
Yes, The Whomping Willow. And that's the episode that follows the one before it. So now you're all caught up.
That's right.
So what's happening?
Well, things are happening. Let me see something about something real quick. Yes. The previous chapter involved the whole excursion to Diagon Alley with the flu powder and the getting lost and the stuff and the thing.
Yeah, and they met Gilderoy Lockhart there, and Malfoy's father, who's also Malfoy, Lucius Malfoy, had put the diary in Ginny's old book.
That's right. He snuck it in there.
I mean, we wouldn't have noticed it in
that
first
chapter.
Read.
No.
But now that we know, we kind of noticed that he picks up one of her books and
puts
it
back.
So
a little planting.
Mm-hmm. And now, The Whomping Willow is the chapter where they go back to Hogwarts.
That's right. It's time. The summer holidays are over, and Harry is a bit sad because it's been the happiest summer of his life.
Yeah, usually he's counting the days until he can get back to Hogwarts, but this time he spent his summer holiday at the Barrow, where people are actually, nice to him.
Yes, it's very pleasant for him. So, we get a little description of the last evening. There's a bit of a food description, some of Harry's favorite things.
Treacle tart. He likes treacle tart.
Yes, that's the.
It's his lemon cake.
It's his lemon cakes. That's right. And Fred and George do their fireworks, which is, that's got to be a fun way to end the evening. And then a bit of hot chocolate, and then bed.
Not a very healthy thing to drink just before bed, a mug of hot chocolate.
No, pleasant, but not particularly good for you.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, well. British like their comfort stuff.
What do you know about British?
Fuck if I know.
Only what George tells you.
I don't listen to George. No, that's not true. I do ask him questions sometimes. Mm-hmm. Usually only in Harry Potter Bridge, though. And he just answers in the comments. So, thank you, Jorge. And then we have a bit of a comedy bit involving the attempts to get ready and leave the next morning, which involve a lot of false starts.
Right, because they keep forgetting things and going back to the car and driving there and keep forgetting things and going back and blah, 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 which, it always happens to me. I always, leave something at home and go back for it. But in their case, they're 8,000 people, so when each of them forgets something, it becomes a little redundant.
Well, it gets a bit more ridiculous each time, and by the time they've gotten everything and they're off, they're running late. Let's see.
Oh no, Molly is impressed with the car.
That's right.
Because Mr. Weasley tweaked it to be much larger on the inside. Harry was wondering how the hell are those 8,000 people and their whole menagerie of animals gonna
their trunks
fit into this little tiny Ford Anglia. And apparently Mr. Weasley had done a little bit of a
undetectable extending charm or whatever it's called. The same thing that Hermione uses on her bag in Deathly Hallows.
Nerd.
Yeah, well.
And Mrs. Weasley doesn't know that he's done that, so she's like, wow, those muggles, they really know their stuff.
That's right,
You would never have guessed there was so much room.
Yes. She's very, very impressed. Which, I've got to say, I mean, maybe it's just because she's so unfamiliar with vehicles in general, but you'd really think that she'd kind of pick up on the fact that Mr. Weasley put a charm on it, especially since she already knows that he's charmed the car to fly.
Do you think she might just have picked up on it, but doesn't really want to know?
So she's kind of willfully ignoring it?
Or sort of asking in a roundabout way.
Without...
she doesn't ask, did you do something to it?
She's very impressive.
I really like how those muggles did that thing. It's almost like magic.
You can't decide, though. And of course, when you listen to Stephen Fry read it, you don't get the sense that that's what he's trying to convey either. I mean, granted, he didn't write it, but him and J.K.R. are pretty tight.
Yeah, he's making her sound just impressed, but the way that she puts it, I mean, you'd never know it was this roomy from the outside, would you? It could go either way.
I tend to agree.
And I mean, but if she had meant it that way, she would probably add a line about Mr. Weasley, heard it and kind
squirmed, or some kind
looked
of
the other way, or maybe started a conversation with one of the kids or something like that.
Yeah, totally.
But it's very not like Molly to be oblivious or
That's
naive.
my point exactly, is that she's not exactly unobservant. So, anyway, and then after that, they get loaded up, and that's when there's the false starts, and the leaving and the coming back, and the almost leaving, and the almost, and then the back and the forth, and the back and the forth.
Yeah, they forget their fireworks, they forget, they almost reach the motorway when Jeannie says that
she left her diary, which, is our nice little early foreshadowing for something that we couldn't possibly know what it means yet.
I mean, I don't know if it's foreshadowing. It's kind of like that movie Revolving Doors. Is it called Revolving Doors in English or something like that? It kind of, in a second read, it would make you think, what if they didn't go back for the diary?
Exactly. Is it Chekhov's diary? Is that what it is? No, I don't. I'm just making up stuff now.
But you wanna first of all, she makes the diary a thing right from the beginning. When it's revealed, or when we go back to the fact that Ginny has a diary, it's not a totally unknown thing. So
right, it's here early in the story. Yeah.
But also, to me, it always makes me think, like, because it was the last thing they went
Back
back
for.
and they almost reached the motorway. So, like, if they had reached the motorway, they wouldn't have been able to come back for it and still keep time to get to Hogwarts.
As it was, they were still running late. Well, they were just
They were just in the nick of time.
in the nick of time, and Mr. Weasley, of course, tries to convince Molly to fly the car, which, of course, she outright denies, or forbids, I should say. So that happens, and he tries, and she still says no.
Which also is an interesting what if, because if they would have flown the car there,
They would have gotten there earlier enough.
and nothing, like the whole barrier thing, it might have happened, but it might have been resolved differently.
Because they'd have had time.
Yeah, exactly. They wouldn't have had to send everyone so quickly, and they could, yeah.
But as it was, they reached King's Cross at 11:15, which, we know that the Hogwarts Express takes off at 11, so they were hauling ass.
They were what?
Hauling ass.
What's that?
They were in a hurry. They were booking it.
Hauling ass?
Yeah. That's a colloquialism. Is that what you say? Yeah. For getting it in gear.
I'm gonna call you hauling ass from now on.
Indeed. And so, Mr. Weasley dashed across the road. They get the trolleys in their trunks, and they're hauling ass. That's what's happening right now. Anyway, and so we get a little reminder of how you get onto the platform, because it's book 2, and that's what you have to do, apparently. You have to remind people how the platform entrance works. So there's the barrier between platforms 9 and 10. It's explained that you walk through it without the muggles noticing you, blah, 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 blah. And for reasons not entirely explicable, the most responsible people are sent through first and the least last.
No, it makes sense that Percy would go in first because he is a prefect.
Is he head boy yet?
Not
No,
yet.
he's still a
Next
prefect.
book is head boy, but he's a prefect, and they do the thingy. They have to go through their card.
Yeah, and then monitor patrol the train and.
So for him, it would make sense to go in first, but I don't understand why the parents go in before Harry and Ron.
I guess that's really what I mean. Yeah. So they send Percy, then they send Fred and George, and then the parents take Ginny, which I understand the parents taking Ginny, but that should be the last. Instead, they go, and then they're like, all right, we're going to go, and you and Ron, you come right after us. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, all right, well, yeah, let's do that. It's not like they're, at this point, nobody's trying to cause any trouble. They're just like, all right, we're going to go. We're going to go last, and here we go. And they take off at a bit of a run.
And oh my God, he says, let's go together. We've only got a minute. They only have 1 minute to catch the train?
Well, he says a minute. He doesn't necessarily mean 1 minute. A minute could be the figurative, like we don't have much time.
Fine.
But nonetheless, time is very short. Because, they got there at 11:45, and you know that getting the trolleys and the trunks and everything, they probably can't have more than 5 minutes, if at the most. Maybe it is a minute. Who knows? Either way, it's not a lot of time. So they go, and they and of course they're not worried because there's they know how this works, and so they do it, and is what happens.
What was that?
That was the crash.
That's a crash sound?
That was the crash.
Okay.
Yeah, that happened.
Nice sound effect.
Nice
sound effect.
Thank you. I'm here to help. And so they're like, whoa, wait a minute. The fuck? Barrier stopped working right when we got there. And so, and everything's falling everywhere, and Hedwig's screeching in his cage, and no mention of Scabbers, by the way, in this chapter. So, at all. Where the fuck is Scabbers?
In Ron's pocket.
Yeah, but he doesn't. They crash into the barrier, and later they are in the car with the tree. No mention. Hedwig is mentioned, and every time something bad happens to them, Hedwig is mentioned because of the screeching in the cage and all that. There's no and Scabbers was running around, or he fell out of Ron's pot. Nothing.
Well, he never actually does fall out of Ron's pocket unless it's plot convenient.
Unless it's what?
Plot
Convenient. That's why I just never thought about that. Like we listened to this chapter the other day as a little refresher prepper, and it didn't even occur to me that there's no mention of scabbers whatsoever. Anyway, whatever.
And so obviously people around them, like the Muggles, they don't notice like people running into a barrier
And disappearing.
They don't notice people with owls running around the station. But once they crash into the barrier, then
They're suddenly very noticeable.
Oh, what are you doing? What's happening? And everyone's like indignant and like,
What in blazes do you think you're doing? Stuff like that.
And mutter about cruelty to animals because of Hedwig's screech and so that doesn't add to their level of comfort and
right. So now they're conspicuous and they're confused
because they don't get why the barrier didn't work.
Yeah. So and maybe it was a minute because not long after that Ron's counting the seconds. Well, actually Harry is and they're like. And then they watch the time evaporate.
Yeah, and they're like 10 seconds, 9 seconds, 8 seconds. Ooh, okay, that train has gone. They wouldn't have made it onto the train even if they had managed to go through the barrier, seriously.
I mean, they you know, the way they make it seem like the doors don't close right away. You could like run and like toss your stuff on and jump onto the. It would have been close, but they, you know, the with the help of like.
Seriously, you'd need to be like Bruce Willis in whatever it is. Mission Impossible, is that Bruce Willis?
That is not Bruce Willis. That is Tom Cruise.
Right, but there's the death something Metlichiot. The film series where Bruce Willis is
Die Hard.
Die Hard, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm just saying, like the parents are out there. Mr. and Mrs. Weasley are out there. They could help. Fred and George could have been like on the train, help. Like, here, toss me this. You know, they had a chance. They might have been a close one, but they had a chance. And at the very least, if it didn't work out for some reason, the Weasleys could have found a way to help them. But instead, they're stuck on the other side of the barrier, and they see the time evaporate.
And now it's gone.
And now the train is gone.
And their first thought is, what if Mom and Dad can't get back through? Like, what are we gonna do then? Which is strange because, no, I guess the thought makes sense.
Right.
But the fact that they go and act on it before waiting to see.
Right. There's like a sense of panic that time is such a factor that they have to do something right then and there, as opposed to, well, there is, but then, see, so this is the thing. And
okay, so Ron asks, do you have any Muggle money? And Harry's like, the Dursleys haven't given me pocket money for 6 years, which means that, first of all, they gave him pocket money when he was 6, which was 6 years ago. Who the hell gets pocket money when they're 6? Like, when are you ever separated from your parents for enough time to use any pocket money?
Especially them, with him, when they don't let him out of their sight when they're out in public. That's strange.
And the other thing that's strange is that they would
ever give him
pocket money at
ever,
all.
Ever, yeah. I always thought that was a strange one, too. I'm going to chalk that up to early novel mistakes.
That's a second novel.
It is second. That's why I said early.
Well, it's too late to make these kinds of mistakes.
Yeah, I don't know what she was getting at then.
I just want to know who gets pocket money when they're 6.
Yeah.
What possible scenario?
I mean, even if they gave him even if they were just giving him like coins, like for what purpose? Like, they don't like him. They didn't like him when he was 6 either.
Nope. Maybe he got. No, it says specifically the Dursleys. I thought maybe from like a distant uncle or something.
No,
Darcy's haven't given me pocket money for about 6 years.
He says about, but even if he means like 5, that's still not really much better.
Nope. Okay, so they're trying to understand what are they going to do. They don't know how long Mr. and Mrs. Weasley would take to get back. They don't know what to do. It sounds like they're sort of panicked, but I don't understand why they're panicked. I mean, the train had already left. What is the time
crunch now?
Mm-hmm. And they act like they are in some sort of time crunch.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe because of everyone's looking at them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're very like aware of their like, even though they're not in their robes yet or anything, but they still have like their trunks and Hedwig and all that. So
and which would make sense because the next thing Harry suggests is that they
we
go and wait by the car, which means he doesn't want to
draw any more attention,
specifically in the station. So that's the time crunch. They don't want to be looked at anymore.
They don't want to be like drawing attention because they're kids, you know, and adults are going to be like, what are you kids doing by yourselves with this owl, this crazy stuff? So Harry's suggestion of like, let's go wait by the car is actually a fairly sensible one in my mind. Like at first, it's like, okay, well, yeah, that's where the Weasleys are going to probably come find you. So we'll go by. But then Ron, immediately, as soon as the words "the car" come out of Harry's mouth, because I say anyway, because of Fred and George's antics with the car, which apparently we learned a little bit later that they've taken the car and flown it like 5 or 6 times on their own, and not the least of which was the time that they came to rescue Harry from the Dursleys, which Ron was with them for that adventure. Ron's like, the car, we can fly the car, which, I mean,
yeah.
I mean,
okay, they're 12 years old, so they're not expected to make the wisest decisions in the world, and yet last book they kind of saved the world, so
right. No, you could say that could give you a bit of a foolhardy sense of confidence, maybe.
Perhaps. I mean, that's why you don't give driver's licenses out until a little later, because like kids who are 12 years old shouldn't be allowed to make those kinds of decisions.
That's
about,
right.
You know, running a vehicle.
That's right. Least of all, one that can fly. But actually, that's not even true. The least in the air, you're not likely to hit somebody.
Well, the fall might be more dangerous.
Well, for the drivers, yes, but and possibly for people below. But I'm just saying, like driving a car, you immediately can hit just about anybody.
That's true. So Harry's like not so sure about it, but then Ron gives him like the most logical of explanations. He goes, "We're stuck, right? And we've got to get to school, haven't we? And even underage wizards are allowed to use magic if it's a real emergency. Section 19 or something of the restriction of thingy."
Good old thingy. That restriction of thingy. That's important. And suddenly...
But that's not true, because like when he says real emergency, he kind of paraphrases the
actual
life
law.
and death situation.
Right.
The underage wizards are allowed to use magic to when they're...
To defend themselves.
Yeah, when they're about to be harmed, not
right.
when they're about to...
Be late for school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not the same thing. But of course, you know, that... I mean, I can definitely remember as a... You know, children do like to twist these types of things. And you know, I think there's even a part of Ron that fancies himself, that would like to think of himself more like Fred and George, being a daredevil, like doing something cool and crazy and getting away with it. And that's the thing, that Fred and George often do get away with the cool and crazy things that they do. And like I said, he's seen them fly this car and has at least participated once in the flying of said car with them. So he decides that he wants to be... I mean, even though that's not said here, I think that there's got to be something to that.
I would also wonder, don't they, like, think, well, how are the parents going to get home if they're, like, swiping their car?
Well, they can apparate.
I guess, yeah.
But, of course, that same argument would be like, well, why couldn't they apparate back to the fucking car? and meet them there. And in that case, they shouldn't take very long to get there, which, they're talking about how we don't know how long it'll take for them to get back to us. I mean, I know they can't just apparate right into the middle of King's Cross because people would probably freak out if they just popped into existence, but they could probably apparate back to the car. I mean, I know that's still a little risky, but there's got to be something where they could get back to them without it, taking forever.
Point is, they wanted to fly the car.
That's really what it boiled. Bron wants to fly the car, and Harry gets excited about it, too.
Yeah, because Harry's feeling of panic turns suddenly into excitement. So yeah, they just want to do the thing. So they're looking for justification.
That's right.
And it's kind of cool because they were, a minute ago, they were so panicked and worried and didn't know what to do. And now they're like on the top of the world.
And they're about to be literally on top of the world. So they're like, yeah, if we hurry, we can follow the train. So they run off through the crowd, and they get back to the car, and Ron unlocks the trunk, or the boot, as it were. The boot. How he knows how to use his wand to get in there, I don't know, but whatever. That's neither here nor there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they
also, he does a silent spell, because it says Ron unlocked the Covenant's boot with a series of taps from his wand.
Right, Ron, whose magic skills are kind of in school, can somehow do this. I don't really.
I mean, he doesn't. They don't learn to do inaudible spells until their 6th year.
Right, and he struggles with it then.
So what the fuck? I think this was just. I think J.K. Rowling was just as excited as Ron and Harry
while writing this chapter
to write about flying a car that she didn't stop to really
think
look
about
at what's happening here.
And apparently, her editors were pretty excited about it too.
Okay.
I mean, unless there was some sort of thing where the brick in Diagon Alley where it didn't require a spell, you just had to tap a magic wand on it. I don't know. Whatever. So yeah, so they get in the car, they got all their stuff loaded up, and
Ron's like, check, no one's watching. Great, let's press the button that makes the car vanish. The car vanishes, and then they start flying it.
They take off, yeah.
Great. They take off. They're in the fucking sky.
That's right.
And great. How lovely.
And then somewhere in there, we get a little moment where the car shows back up, and
right. The invisibility booster is faulty.
Right.
So they reappear when they're in the sky. So to deal with that, so they won't be seen, they decide to go up and up and up above the clouds, so they won't be able to be seen by the Muggles.
Oh, so that's right. They don't ever get it to stay invisible, do they?
No, they can't. That's what's happened.
That's why they get seen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because
right.
every other, I don't know, half an hour or something, they need to go down to see where the train is.
That's right.
And when they go down, they're able to be spotted.
Right.
So,
if the invisibility booster was working, that would have never happened.
Mm-hmm. But it doesn't work. So, which, I don't know, does that mean that Mr. Weasley's magic is also not that great?
That's maybe, but it's one of those weird things where how do you even quantify that? If it's something that should either work or not, you would think.
Or maybe it's the car itself.
Right.
If the car is too old, it can't hold up a magic thingy, whatever.
I don't know. There's a lot of what's the opposite of concrete in this word? Just kind of
amorphic.
Yeah, like strange things about the magic, quality-wise, that are hard to quantify and understand. I mean, and I think she purposely leaves those kind of things a little vague, but it's. I mean,
it's
just
not like she purposefully leaves them vague to make a point of something. She just doesn't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
Some things she just says well, fuck it.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
They're
There's also a comedic effect to this, and I think she's more interested in the joke and in the like consequences that happen later. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, everything's great.
In their minds.
Mm-hmm, they kind of like the whole flying a car thing.
So they dip back down. So then this is the first time so they've already gotten up above the clouds for a minute, but then they're like, all right, we got to go make sure we're following the train. So they dip back down. Harry spots it, and they're like, all right, cool, due north. Which of course, strangely enough, their car has a compass on the dash.
Why is it strange?
Because cars don't usually have compasses on the dash, but especially in no, at least not in America. I don't know. Maybe they do in England.
I feel like they do. I don't know. It's been a while.
I mean, maybe
since
in this case, maybe since Mr. Weasley did install a flying thing on it, maybe he decided that a compass would be useful as well. Since when you're in the air, it's easier to use a compass to figure out which direction you're going.
I mean, a GPS would have been more efficient.
Right, but this was This was pre-GPS times.
Yeah, but they got magic.
Well, they have magic too, but I'm just saying. But a compass isn't magic; it's just a magnet.
Okay, so point is, a thing I'm kind of wondering about with the whole due north thing. London is pretty south in
England.
It's in the south of England.
Yep. South central, kinda. Yeah.
How long is the train ride to Hogwarts? They usually get there at 11. They get to the station at 11. That's when the train leaves from London.
In the morning, right?
And then they get to Hogwarts after dark.
Right.
They get to Hogsmeade after dark.
After dark, and then they go to the feast and the dinner, yeah.
And the direction is north. Point is, I always thought that Hogwarts was in Scotland or Wales. Because it's kind of isolated.
And it's in the mountains, kind of, or surrounded by mountains anyway, right? Yeah. Kind of.
And I want to calculate where exactly Hogwarts is. So you're gonna need to edit some stuff out. Is that okay?
That's fine.
So we've calculated thusly: sunset in September September 1st in the UK is 7:45.
Yep.
And they get to Hogwarts just right after sunset. So
around 8 p.m.
So around 8 they get to Hogwarts. So that means they travel from 11 to 8.
Which is 9 hours.
Which is 9 hours. I think it's 9 hours.
Yeah, that is. That's how that works.
It's 9 hours. Average train speed, 200 kilometers per hour. Which means 9 hours at 200 kilometers per hour is 1,800 kilometers. So now we're going to find out what is 1,800 kilometers north of London.
All right, so let's where we go?
Maps, Google.
I think what we've determined is that she made it get there when she wanted it to get there.
But it has to be like...
It's in the north of the island.
Hey, here train from London to Inverness is 8 hours. Ha! Ha.
Okay.
Okay, so after much Googling... we found out that... according to our calculations, which are very inaccurate and frankly unprofessional, we've discovered that Hogwarts must be way, way, way up north, like north of Scotland. A train ride that's like 8 hours from London would be around Inverness.
Right, which is where Outlander takes place.
Yes, and a lot of other things.
That's right. I'm just being, Anyway.
So, if you wanted to know where Hogwarts was, and you might have not wanted to know that, but now you do. It's around Inverness.
Thereabouts. Mm-hmm. Maybe a little further north, because we said 9 hours.
Right. We found like 8.5 hours to Inverness, so a little north.
A little north
there.
of that.
But that's sort of the location.
So it's in the Highlands, as it were.
Yep.
Right then. So.
Okay.
Very good. So,
So now that we've given you all of the information, we can continue with our story.
that's right. Okay, wait. Yep. Right. Okay, so, yep. And so we get the whole description of them being up above the clouds. And, of course, you know, it's in a lot of ways much like how it feels when you take off in a plane and you get up above the clouds and you can see, you know, the clouds below you and you're out in the sun and blah, blah, blah. But, of course, you're there in a tiny car doing this experience.
With
so
an open roof.
It's not a convertible.
In the movie, it was with an open roof.
Was it?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, yeah, I don't think that it's supposed to be in the... But regardless of that, I mean, still, you know, doing it in a car would be pretty amazing. At first, anyway.
Yeah.
But,
And so, yeah, it was, we got a great description about how fabulous it is, how amazing it is, and how excited they are to see Fred and George looks on their faces, like how jealous they would be when they landed smoothly and spectacularly on the lawn at Hogwarts.
That's right.
And obviously, you know, if she says that in that way, obviously it's not gonna happen. And then after we get the description of how wonderful it is, we get the description of how unpleasant it is, because they kind of had to admit that it was fun at first, but then it got boring. They were kind of too hot. They were sweaty because, you know, closer to the sun.
Closer to the sun, no shade from the clouds or anything, and they don't have anything to drink, and they've been eating all these toffees and candies and stuff, and they don't have anything to drink, and they're sweating, and they're sticking to the seat, and
they're kind of longing for the train at this point.
Right, they're like, you know, it kind of comes back to like, why aren't we doing what we were supposed to do, you know? Why couldn't we just get on the damn train, and where's our pumpkin juice?
Yeah, exactly. So instead of being excited about it, they're all like, what the fuck? But they're suffering so much that they're like, how much farther?
Right.
But, I mean, they get there in the end. But before that, the car starts to cough.
Yeah, it starts to make some noises and whine, and they kind of try to
Pretend
ignore
it's not happening.
Right. Yep.
That's what you do.
Yep.
When you, because they kind of have no choice. What are they gonna do now?
Yeah, right. They've committed.
They could land it right there and then. That's what I'd do if my flying car started to look like it's faulty. I would land that shit, because I wouldn't want to take the risk of it like falling off the sky, completely dying, because that's what you would do. Like when you're on the highway and your car starts to cough, you would go to the thingy and park it and see what's happening.
Right.
You won't just keep
driving
with a faulty car.
Of course, they're 12.
Yes, and they shouldn't have their license yet.
That's right. Mm-hmm. They definitely shouldn't.
Kids, don't drive at 12.
Yeah.
Life lesson.
And so that's for you, Tiernan. Just kidding. Jokes. Everyone. He's 13, right? No, I'm just.
I think he has reached puberty. But pretty late one.
That's horrible. I'm sorry. Bad jokes from Brandon.
We'll make some old jokes later.
That's right. We can make some anytime you want.
Mm-hmm. So now they're not just, they don't just want the drive to be over as soon as possible because they're not having fun. They want it to be over as soon as possible because they are freaking out that they're gonna, crash.
Because the car is like running out of whatever. Gas or life or magic or any of the above.
Running out of magic.
Good old running out of magic.
So gross.
Yeah. Gross?
Yeah, like gross in the way that you don't think about magic in that way, you know?
Right.
Anyway, point is, they finally see the silhouette of the castle in front of them. And they're like, oh my god, okay. But the car is beginning to shudder and lose speed, which is fucking scary.
Yeah.
And it's starting to shake, and they're like,
groaning.
Come on. Super scary. And they're like gripping the edges of their seat as if this is gonna help them in any way, shape, or form. And then the car like wobbles, and Harry sees like the water, he sees the lake, so he thinks they're gonna drown in the lake with the car. And then the engine dies.
Ron puts his foot down, and that's it.
Yeah.
Maybe he floods the engine. Probably not, though.
The engine dies completely, and they're starting to drop down.
Yeah. And somehow, even though the engine's not working anymore, there's still like some sort of guidance mechanism through the steering wheel, which is, some sort of like so
the steering wheel does not connect to the engine. Like if your car is totally
I know, but my point is just that the magic hasn't completely.
Magic. It's not magic. It's mechanics.
It's not mechanics when you're flying.
They're not flying. They're falling. Haven't you read that chapter?
My point is,
if your car is completely parked and you steer the wheel, it changes the wheels. The position
I understand
of the
that it changes the position of the wheels, but in the midst of flying, that it ain't like they're rudders. They're tires. They
don't think about it too hard.
Okay. Anyway,
because that's the theme of this chapter. Don't think about it too hard.
Don't think about it too hard. That's true.
Magic is running out, and anyway, what's happening now? They're like, no, falling.
That's all happening.
Falling.
They just narrowly missed the castle, and then
Harry's like, mind that tree, only in all caps.
And then they hit the tree.
Mm-hmm. They hit the tree, which is not the ideal tree to hit. If you're gonna hit a tree, you might as well pick any other tree.
But they didn't know that, because this tree hasn't moved in the time that they've been there. And so...
But before they get whumped by the Whomping Willow, they assess the damages, because there are some damages, and the largest and most important of which is Ron's wand. His wand just snapped in half.
And so Ron receives his punishment for this most ill-advised scheme.
Mm-hmm. His wand breaks in two, and... doesn't break in two. It breaks almost in two. The tip hangs dangling from a few splinters. It's a great punishment. Not great as in wonderful, but great as in big.
Big. It's a big punishment because
for the rest of the year. He's not gonna be able to perform any kind of magic properly, which goes to their advantage at the end with Lockhart, who's trying to
it finally Ron finally gets like some sort of like backwards redemption, but not before he eats some slugs. Throws up a bunch of slugs, but nonetheless, which is interesting because even though that was unfortunate, it did kind of save him from getting in trouble.
That's true.
But of course.
Another thing is that he probably wasn't able to learn anything in that year because he wasn't able to practice any sort
spells.
of spell.
No.
So, the only thing he was able to probably learn is potions and history of magic. I would think maybe astronomy. We never really know what's happening in astronomy class, do we?
No, never.
We get the OWL, the OWL of astronomy.
And that's the only time we see that class.
Yeah, which is crazy because when I was in that scene, I kind of felt like I went to an exam without prepping for it because I've never been in that class before.
Yeah, we've even seen History of Magic, which is the most boring class of them all, and yet we've never seen astronomy.
Also, I don't agree that, History of Magic, it's got a bad rep, but I don't think it's that bad. The teacher is horrible.
Well, that's what I mean.
He's boring, but I'm thinking about learning the things. Reading Hermione's notes must be fascinating.
True.
But yeah,
But Ben's makes it bad.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
I guess so.
Right. So. And so right when Harry's about to say, well, I'm sure they'll be able to mend your wand, which of course they can't, and we learned all about that later. But right about the time he's about to say that, that's when they get their first clue that this is not an ordinary tree that they ran into, because something hits the side of the car with the force of a charging bull. Turns out to be one of the branches of the willow. So the tree starts beating up the car, and they're freaking out. And then, as everything's going kind of crazy, and they're thinking they're about to get just squished inside the car decides to wake back up, and the engine restarts, and they yell at it Harry yells at it to reverse, and it backs away, and it gets out of reach of the tree. And then the car has taken on now the car is no longer just enchanted to fly. The car now has taken on it's a personality now. Yeah. Don't think about it too hard.
Nope.
And so the car ejects them and their stuff and Hedwig's cage, and Hedwig flies off without a backward glance. And
the car is driving away into
the forest where it will later go wild and save them.
Mm-hmm. So it was kind of a good adventure, because if they hadn't done all of that, they would have been eaten by a bunch of spiders.
Giant spiders.
I mean, they wouldn't have, because she wouldn't have written it that way.
But knowing what we know, right? Yeah. So there's that. Well,
I don't feel like there's always I really don't feel like there's any danger at any point to our heroes, because she really writes the story around what's most convenient to our heroes. So, if there is a flying car in the story, it will save them when the spiders come.
Right.
I don't feel comfortable saying something like I just did. They would have been eaten by a bunch of spiders.
Because obviously they weren't going to get eaten by spiders. This isn't Game of Thrones.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it goes to show you something about that book, which I love, but I don't feel, at least at that point, that it's enough of a world, enough holding itself together, that you can go what if, because you feel the writer still.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the thing about the argument about, well, it's a children's book, but it's got dark themes. Well, it does have dark themes, but it's still a children's book in the sense that your protagonists aren't going to get killed, or even their best friend's not going to get killed. Mm-hmm. Ned Stark is going to live,
Mm-hmm.
So, but whatever. I mean, we enjoy the story for what it is. We know what it is.
We certainly do.
Right, so...
And Ron is yelling at the car backing away into the forest. Come back, Dad's gonna kill me. But dude, Dad's gonna kill you anyway. You just flew his car to Hogwarts.
Right.
I mean, Dad probably won't kill you at all, because Dad is not the one who does the killing.
It's Mom. Right. You're really worried about the wrong one here.
Mm-hmm. But he thinks Dad's gonna kill me because it's his car, I guess, and he's put a lot of effort into it with his flimsy magic, apparently.
Right. Although his extended anyway, whatever.
And Ron's can you believe our luck? If we,
as if the fact that they're still alive isn't luck.
Mm-hmm.
But
they mentioned Scabbers finally.
Where?
Can you believe our luck? Ron is bending down to pick up
Scabbers the rat. I'll be damned, I missed that last time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Finally, Scabbers. I mean, where was he throughout all of this? Probably sleeping in Ron's pocket. Ron has super strength industrial pockets.
Yeah, and they must be deep too.
Mm-hmm.
It must be a very deep.
And also very snug.
Yeah.
Nothing ever falls from that pocket.
Nope.
Not a thing.
Only when they got ejected from the car did Scabbers fall out.
Mm-hmm.
When he was tipped over, probably sideways or something, and fell. Right. Anyway.
Their arrival is not as triumphant as they had imagined it to be.
Which, of course, we had a feeling.
A little bit of a feeling. I mean,
yeah.
we've read this before, but...
Yeah, but I mean, just even in the text, when she plants that, like, that idea, the vision of the glorious landing.
Because, like, the thing is, with books in general, we like to say, in this book or in this book, when there's a plan, it never really happens as it was imagined to happen.
Right.
But, I mean, that's writing. Because, like, if you write a scene... She actually wrote a scene of them arriving and being cheered and all of that.
Right.
She wrote it, and I mean, it might have been just in Harry's imagination, but she's written it already, so
Right.
she's not gonna write it again.
Right.
When they actually arrive and that actually happens. I mean, she could probably write, and it happened exactly like Harry had imagined it, but I mean,
Of course not.
yeah.
No. So,
They need to walk to Hogwarts now.
which we had a discussion about this.
How long of a walk is it?
Right. I didn't think of it as being that long of a walk because I was like, how are they already at the sorting? And after the feast.
Because when they arrive, the sorting is ongoing, and we think like, okay, they were driving, they were flying at the speed of the train. They arrived at Hogwarts
Roughly the same time that the train arrived at Hogsmeade, and then they had to, the rest of the students had to catch the carriages with the invisible thestrals, and the first years had to get in the lake with Hagrid, and then they had to get into the school, and then they had to get into the Great Hall, and the first years had to get sorted. Wait, they get sorted before the feast, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. So okay.
It takes a while. They have to wait for a while.
In an antechamber, yeah, and the ghosts have to scare them, and okay.
Things need to happen, but I think it's like a 40 minutes walk through and across the grounds of Hogwarts. I think it has like huge ass grounds.
And so that's the part that I didn't really get. Like in my mind, like I kind of thought like it was like a 15 to 20 minute walk tops, maybe less, but
Fewer. And this time it was right.
Fine. And she's saying that maybe it's like closer to like 40 minutes, and I could be okay. I mean, it's a big castle, big grounds make sense. So anyway, yeah, they finally get up there, and yeah, they're like, oh look, it's the sorting. So they're looking in through the outside windows, which by the way, so like they're like, I guess because everybody's attention's on the front of the room, that nobody sees them peering through the windows.
I mean, if you were in a dark outside looking at a lit inside, no one's gonna see you anyway, even if they had.
Oh, that's true. So we get a little description of the hall and the plates and the goblets and the ceiling, which we know how that works.
Right, and we start to get a description of how the sorting works, so we can skip that. And they get sorted into 4 houses. The 4 houses have these sorts of qualities. You don't need that. I'm going to sort you myself if you really feel the need to be sorted. But they're kind of catching a glimpse of everything that's happening through the window, and we get a reminder of what happened last year at the sorting and the rivalry between Gryffindor and Slytherin, blah blah blah.
House championship, blah blah blah.
Dumbledore is there, McGonagall is there, right? Fun.
Lockhart in his aquamarine robes.
Yeah, he's the only one who's wearing interestingly colored robes, which I mean, she used it to just to point out how vain he is, but I think it's sort of cool. Like, add a bit of color to it. Why don't you?
Well, wasn't McGonagall an emerald? But I mean, that's dark, but, you know.
Yeah, they wear like dark purple and emerald and
Yeah.
all sorts of other versions of black.
Right.
So I don't know. I kind of like Lockhart's outfits.
Yeah.
But
So then they're like looking around the table and they're like, wait a minute.
someone's missing.
And then they realize that Snape's not there, which, you know,
Interesting.
wonder where he might be. And of course
Where's Snape? Where's Snape? And then they start speculating. Maybe he's sick. Maybe he's left. Like, they kind of, you know,
maybe he's been fired.
Yeah, maybe he's dead. Maybe he's both dead and fired and sick and left. Because they kind of ill wish him. I would say.
Yeah, just a bit. Nobody likes him, and which is what Ron says. I mean, everybody hates him, or maybe.
Said a very cold voice right behind them.
Yes, and that's when we find out that Snape has actually been the one that's been sent to find out where they are. Which leads me to believe that Dumbledore probably already had some sort of premonition as to what happened, and he sent Snape.
Yeah, like, why send Snape specifically? I mean, they couldn't have sent McGonagall because she's busy with the sorting.
Sorting, right.
But Snape?
I'm sure he probably volunteered.
Yeah,
but,
that's what's happened. He volunteered.
yeah, because, you know, he hates them, too. Mm-hmm. So...
He wanted to catch them.
And so he's like, yeah, we want to find out why you didn't arrive on the school train.
Right.
And so, yeah, there he is.
Smiling at them.
Yeah, of course.
Though it was Christmas.
That's right.
And, and they get that they're in trouble now. I mean, they should have gotten it before, but now that they see that Snape is smiling, well, if Snape's smiling, you know.
They're in very deep trouble.
Indeed.
So, Snape leads them off to the dungeons, to his office. And so, yeah.
And then he starts calling them, like, but in a passive aggressive way, as he usually does. He's like,
yeah.
So is the train not good enough for famous Harry Potter and his faithful sidekick?
Yeah.
He wanted to arrive in style. He wanted to arrive with a bag, which obviously they did, but they're all like, no, the train barrier, King's Cross.
Well, with Snape's making it sound like this was their plan from the get-go, which it wasn't, but of course they did have ideas of like, oh, this will be really cool once they had to do it.
They didn't have
no, you're right, they didn't have to. Once they chose to do it, let me say that.
Yeah, maybe they didn't plan it from 2 months ago, but he's right about them at that instance. Usually he's not being very fair when he's describing how Harry's like vain and wants attention, but at this specific instance he had actually wanted attention. Yeah,
well, he's right and he's wrong, because he's like, oh, the train isn't good enough, and of course that's not the case. They wanted to ride the train. They even, after halfway through their flying, they wanted to be on the train, and they definitely wanted to catch it at the beginning. But when they didn't, they chose a stupid plan and wanted that plan to lead them to getting cool attention, and like Fred and George being jealous and everybody being like, ooh, they flew a car. So yeah, he's right and he's wrong, kind of at the same time.
Anyway, Snape is like, doesn't want to hear anything, and he's like, what have you done with the car? So they're kind of shocked because how would he know that they arrived
in
by
a car?
And then the way that he explains it, is that he just tosses the Evening Prophet in front of them, which is, I am assuming, the evening version of the Daily Prophet. And I think it's the one time we ever hear about there being an Evening Prophet.
I think it comes up a few other times, but not nearly that often. But it does happen, yeah.
Anyway, there are headlines in the Evening Prophet about a flying Ford Anglia that mystifies muggles, and he's like, you've been seen, muggles in London saw you in Norfolk and saw you in there and saw you there, like 6 or 7 muggles in all have seen the car.
Yeah.
And he's like, I believe your father works in the misuse of muggle artifacts office. He's like, and he wouldn't want his son to have done such a thing, because
Right.
obviously,
And Snape's not a big fan of Mr. Weasley either, obviously. So,
I don't know, isn't he? I don't think they have any beef.
well, anybody I mean,
They've never had any beef.
not directly. I just don't think he really cares for him that much. That's just the feeling. But I mean, he doesn't like Ron, so I don't know. Anyway, so
And he also tells them that not only they've been seen, also they have damaged a very valuable Whomping Willow. And they're like...
and Ron, of course, has to blurt out, that tree did more damage to us. And, of course, that's when Snape yells at them again to shut up. And, so, yeah.
And that sort of is not fair, the way that he's blaming them for injuring the Whomping Willow. I mean, if he blames them for the whole thing, so, yeah, obviously injuring the Willow is a part of that. But I mean... obviously, they were in more danger than the tree ever was. So
absolutely,
kind of right in that. But Snape was like, "I can't expel you. Although I would very much like to. But I'm gonna go and get the people who can expel you. So you just wait here.
Sit tight, kiddos."
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, they're kind of freaking out. Let's see. And we get a description of the office, and then...
they're thinking, Harry's thinking, okay, so Snape probably went to fetch McGonagall, which is better than Snape because she's more fair, but she's strict enough for it to not matter anyway, because at this point they're kind of realizing that they
screwed up.
Magnificently stupid and a screwed up thing.
Yeah.
And then Snape returns
with McGonagall.
Yeah, with McGonagall, and she looks as angry as she's ever looked.
If not angrier, yeah.
She raises her wand when she enters, and Harry's like flinching, thinking,
right, he's gonna be punished somehow.
What did he's thinking like she's gonna hurt him somehow, but she's just
lighting a fire
because obviously Snape left them in
the cold
office. So with the first thing that she does, we realize that McGonagall might be strict, but she's humane, because the first thing that she does is take care of their human necessities. Right,
like she's not going to let them continue. And of course, she also probably herself doesn't want to sit in that cold-ass office.
I suppose.
But yeah, right, she's humane, absolutely.
And she asks them to explain with one word. Explain.
Right, and she also allows them to speak, as opposed to, cutting them off as soon as they start talking.
And then they start talking, blah, blah, blah. They tell the whole story, and they're like, so see, we had no choice. We couldn't go on the train. And then the first thing she does is say the most reasonable thing that they could have done. Why didn't you send us a letter by owl? I believe you have an owl. So, even if the parents would never have come back, even if anything,
they could have sent Hedwig. Yeah. That's true.
And Harry is gaping at her and thinking, now that she said it, it seems like the obvious thing.
Yeah. And of course he's like, I didn't think, and she's like, yeah, obviously. Mm-hmm. And so then somebody else knocks on the door, and Dumbledore comes in, and they're like, fuck. It's like, it's bad enough now that Snape's here, McGonagall's here, now Dumbledore's here. Which, by the way, the feast is still going on, and half the teachers are gone.
3 teachers are dealing with those 2 kids.
Right.
But I guess it's a grave enough offense.
It is, but that's kind of my point. To sort of point out that they all had to leave the feast just to deal with this shit.
And it's so sad because Dumbledore gives them a really unusually grave look, and Harry feels like he wishes that they were still beaten up by the Whomping Willow, because that look is so painful for him to see on Dumbledore's
that disappointment
face.
Yeah.
And he so calmly asks, please explain why you did this.
Yeah.
That is so like, punch in the gut.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Like, you ever have like a good teacher and you do something bad, and then their disappointment is so much more painful than like being scolded by a teacher you hate.
Yeah. And also he's like, it would have been better if he had shouted. That's
Yep.
how he described it. Because if he had shouted, it would have been like, okay, he's angry, but now he's like beyond angry. He's past angry.
Yep.
If someone's angry with you, they could forgive you at some point, but he doesn't feel anything. He's just stunned into disappointment.
Yeah.
That is sad, and Harry explains everything, but he can't look at Dumbledore's eyes, so he's like telling the whole story to his knees.
Yeah.
And he tells the story and sort of has to leave out the fact that it was Mr. Weasley's car.
Because they don't want to get him in trouble.
Yeah, so it kind of sounds like they just found a flying car randomly in the parking garage.
Which, of course, whatever,
yes.
yeah. And of course he knows that Dumbledore's not going to, like buy that, but Dumbledore doesn't question him.
Yeah,
because that's Dumbledore. He's smart.
And that's not the point right now, anyway.
Right. And so Ron's like, well, we'll go and get our stuff. And McGonagall's like, what are you talking about? And Ron's like, you're going to expel us, right? And they're like, not today. Dumbledore says it. And he's like, I've got to, impress upon you both with the seriousness of what you've done, and we'll be writing to your families, and blah, blah, blah. And of course, to set up later events, Dumbledore has to say, if you do anything else like this again, I'll have to expel you. Because, of course, he won't.
But it's a little vague. Because
something like this. What does that mean?
What is that? What is this?
Right.
Like, if you ever fly another vehicle illegally.
Right. It's vague on purpose, I suppose.
Obviously. He wants to scare them, but he doesn't want to commit himself to expelling
anything specific
them.
act. Yeah, exactly.
And now Snape looks as if Christmas has been cancelled. Because he was so hoping for them to be expelled, and he's also like trying to convince Dumbledore that, this is like super serious. They should be expelled. They should be punished pretty heavily. And Dumbledore is like, look, you just stew in your own juices, because the only person who's gonna be able to determine their punishment is Professor McGonagall. She's the head of their house, so you just go and do your thing and be evil some other day, please.
Yes.
If that's not too hard for you, I would just prefer that you be evil somewhere else.
And of course he's like, I have to return to the feast, and he's like, come Severus, which is kind of great, because it's like he's sort of like, even though he's just given Harry and Ron a little bit of a dressing down, and they've gotten punished, or not, they haven't actually been officially punished yet, but they've been like had their talking to and their explaining done and all that. He's like, he kind of like sort of shows his power by like telling, basically, like, 'cause it's not like Snape's gonna deny Dumbledore and not go with him. So he's like, come Severus, and he's like totally gets like airy again, and he's like talking about like a delicious looking custard tart he wants to sample at the feast. So he's like basically letting them know that he's disappointed, but he's not holding a grudge, he's not angry, he's not leaving in a huff or or anything like that. And he's taking Snape with him.
Mm-hmm. So now it's just them and McGonagall, and they're waiting to hear about their impending punishment.
Yeah.
Professor McGonagall, first thing she says is that Ron should go to the hospital wing because he's bleeding. So she worries about
back to being the humane person that she is.
Exactly, because not at any point did anyone, not Snape and not even Dumbledore, thought to say, boy, you're a 12-year-old boy who's bleeding, so maybe before we
talk about your punishment,
you just might want to get your wounds checked out. But no, they spend I don't know how long there to twice explaining, once to McGonagall and once to
Dumbledore,
and no one ever is worried about what's happening to Ron's head
Yeah.
bleeding. And Ron is like, oh, no, it's okay. He's wiping the cut over his eye, okay? His head is fucking bleeding, okay? And no one fucking cares. But whatever, he wants to go and see the sorting because his sister, Ginny, is being sorted.
But of course, if McGonagall's there, that means the sorting is over, and she tells them that it's over, and of course that Ginny was sorted into Gryffindor because Weasley.
And speaking of Gryffindor...
Right, and Harry's like, oh shit, hey, so this happened before term, and so maybe you don't take any points from our house?
Because, I mean, technically he's right.
He is right, it's just, it's kind of funny that, like, because he's already lost points for the house already, and he knows how that feels.
Although he's wrong, because... It depends on how we define the beginning of term, because you know how you're not allowed to do magic in the school vacation,
Right?
but they are allowed to do magic on the train. So technically, the term starts once they at 11. When they
I
go
mean, maybe.
But Professor McGonagall kind of doesn't want to take off points for from Gryffindor, because like if she takes off points for that, it's gonna be a hell of a lot
year.
Of points.
Yeah, it would be a lot. She'd have to take like 50 or more each.
Yeah, and she wouldn't want to start off the year that way, and so she kind of wants to have that excuse, so she kind of takes it.
Which is interesting because I also wonder, what was she going to say? But before Harry cuts her off, she's like, and speaking of Gryffindor...
She was going to take off points.
You think?
Yeah, of course. She was going to take off points from Gryffindor, and Harry's like, see, there's an excuse not to take points from Gryffindor, and she's like, okay, that's good.
And Harry, like, says that he's almost certain that she almost smiled.
Mm-hmm.
And her mouth looked less thin anyway.
But
so she's like, I will not
get detention.
And so, yeah, they're going to get detention, which, I mean, is the very...
But that's kind of... I mean, either it was during term or it wasn't. If it was during term, she should take off points and they should get detention. But if it wasn't during term, she doesn't have the right to give them detention. She can't give them detention for something they did during the holiday. Like if they were in the Weasleys' house.
But it happened at school. They crashed into the Whomping Willow. They showed up in a flying car.
So what?
It's on the grounds of the school.
If they had done it a month before, crashing their car into the Whomping Willow, could she have given them detention? No, she doesn't have the authority over them. So it's either or, but she does kind of a half-ass kind of a thing.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I never really thought about it quite like that, but it's a good point. But it's kind of cool in a way because it's like they get their individual punishments and not punishing the house. So that's that means that they can be punished without having to be like scorned by the rest of their house for losing like 100+ points.
I mean, I agree that it's better for our heroes. I'm just saying it's not just.
It's just enough.
I don't think so.
Okay,
I think
fine.
it's unjust, and I think that not only it's unjust, it's illogical, and it goes to show that we always say that McGonagall is strict but fair, but in this case, she was just thinking about her house and herself, and she was willing to forego logic and justice in order to get some gain. Or at least not lose, make her house not lose. And I think that these things should be pointed out because even our heroes are flawed.
That's right.
Like Professor McGonagall, she's barely flawed. Like she
has her moments, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is a moment. Where she shows one
weakness.
of her flaws, which is how important Gryffindor's success is to her.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because she is not a huge Snape fan.
Nope.
And so, yeah.
Now, the thing is, she doesn't want them to go back to the feast. So, instead...
she gives them food.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, now she's got a fire for him, and now she conjures up some sandwiches. And that's another thing too. They don't get like food from the feast.
Mm-hmm.
They don't get to eat like all the fancy foods and the crazy desserts. They get sandwiches and like they do get ice cold pumpkin juice, which apparently they like.
Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, sounds completely disgusting. The whole pumpkin juice thing is I'm not a fan. I mean.
I'm gonna have to try sometime to make some and see if it's any good.
You should, because there are some beverages that you don't really know what's in them, like butterbeer. You wouldn't know how to make it. I mean, there are recipes, but like, what are they based upon? I wouldn't know. Just
thoughts. Yeah, like I went to a frozen yogurt place with my mom in Jacksonville, and they had a butterbeer flavor. I'm like, well, how do you know? It was good though.
They never say what's in butterbeer, just that the way that it makes you feel, and obviously that it has alcohol in it.
Right, and then maybe like it's like butterscotchy or something. Maybe I don't know. Whatever. Anyway,
but pumpkin juice we could actually make, and I don't know why it's so popular with wizards, but it's not popular at all with the general population, because no one drinks pumpkin juice other than those wizards who apparently gulp them down like something that you gulp down.
That's right.
But they drink and eat, and then they will have to go straight to their dormitory, is what McGonagall says.
Yes. And so she heads back off to the feast, and they're like... So they know that they got off a lot easier than they probably should have, yet again.
And they're like... Can you believe our luck again? Like, Fred and George must have flown the car so many times and no one had ever seen them. Well, obviously, they had the invisibility booster on.
Yeah, and they probably... And Fred and George are older and smarter. So they're just cleverer all the way around.
That's true.
They probably did it at night. Whether the invisibility booster worked or not, they probably did it at night. They don't get caught.
Nope.
That's just sort of their thing.
And it's not luck. He's going like, can you believe our luck? No, it's not luck. You're just
use a bad strategy.
Years old.
Yeah, you're 12 and you're a little stupid, Ron.
Mm-hmm.
I love you. You're my favorite character a lot of times, but you're stupid.
And they're again going like, why can we get through the barrier?
Which of course is obviously an important theme for the actual book itself.
Mm-hmm.
What stopped them? Who?
Yeah, we shouldn't forget about the question of what stopped them from going through the barrier, even though there was a lot of drama and action after that. That is the burning question, the main question that we should be asking ourselves at this point, and this is why they ask it again. But they kind of talk about how much they want to go into the feast, and Ron has all those insights, how Ron...
That's what I love about Ron. He's like...
He seems stupid, but he kind of is able to read people in a way that Harry never is. So Harry's like, I wish we could be at the feast, and Ron is like, well, she didn't want us showing off.
She didn't want people thinking it was clever arriving by flying car.
Yeah,
which is true.
She wants people to like think that they are being
punished and they're in trouble, right?
And not that they will, waltz into the feast, having flown a car to Hogwarts, and
it's still not in their robes yet, too. Just like doop doop doo. Yeah, no.
So Ron gets that, and Harry did not get it.
No, I'm sure once Ron says it, he understands, but Ron already kind of intuitively knows that.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, they finish their food and they're going back to their dormitories. Obviously, the feast is already over. It had been over for a while because the castle is empty and quiet, and they reach the Gryffindor Tower, and then they're like, oh, no one told us the password. But just
in time, of course, some steps, they hear footsteps coming up behind them, and... turns out Hermione is there.
Which, by the way, do you know what that means? It means...
She was waiting.
Not that she was waiting, that she was looking for them.
Well...
Because everyone had already come back to the
Gryffindor
Tower, which means...
She got there and didn't see them and went back out looking for them.
She went back
because
out,
she's
she started
Hermione.
looking for them, and her first words are, there you
are.
Like she had been looking for them
Where
for a
have
while
you
now.
been?
It was ridiculous rumors. Someone says you've been expelled for crashing a flying car. And
Harry's like, well, we haven't been expelled. She's like...
And Hermione's like, what? You did fly a car? Because she doesn't even know about the flying car. She doesn't know about Mr. Weasley's car. So it's like, for her, it's like a random car that they found. Like Harry
right,
was
like how did they fly a
describing it.
fucking car? Right.
Where'd the car come from? And Harry's like, please skip that lecture because
We've already gotten the lecture.
Yeah, they got
from
it
teachers
like 3 times already.
Yeah.
So yeah.
How about the password? So they get the password, which is Waddlebird. And she's like, but that's not the point. And they're like, yeah, it really is the point. Let's just get inside the tower. And of course, as soon as the portrait opens, they get their hero's welcome after all. After they'd already given up on the idea altogether, and they felt duly and thoroughly punished and like not downtrodden, but just like about the whole thing, they get in there and everybody's clapping them on the back, and and so yeah, the whole house is still awake and in the dormitories, and so I guess everybody was like kind of wondering like where the hell are they, which
It only goes to show how popular they are, because
yeah, or at least Harry anyway.
If it were any other like 2 students, no one would even.
Yeah, like
notice.
where's Dean and Seamus? No, everybody's going to bed for that.
Yep.
Where's that Neville? Nope, going to bed.
I can't seem to find Lavender.
You're right.
Let's all stay awake and
right,
wait
exactly.
for Lavender.
Where's Parvati? Yeah. So anyway, Yep.
They're all clapping. They're all like, inspired, brilliant, good on you, mate.
Yeah, and of course Fred and George are like, why couldn't you have called us back, eh? And
well, it's kind of the point. They couldn't have.
They couldn't do anything. Well, except the wrong thing. But
But yeah, I mean, I think at this point they're not really enjoying their hero's welcome because they kind of feel bad about what
they feel guilty. They've been, and especially when they found out that they were seen and all that stuff. They're like, oh man, we really fucked it up. I mean, they enjoy it a bit. Like, see, like
Ron grins guiltily at Harry and like.
He's like, I know I shouldn't have enjoyed that or anything, but. Well, at this point, it's like they've been stung so badly, like to have a little bit of their little hero's welcome. They're like, okay, well, that's cool. At least it didn't end completely, and especially since they didn't lose points for the house. And that's the other thing, if they had, this wouldn't have gone quite so well.
And they haven't gotten their punishments yet, so they're not suffering for it at all, actually.
Not yet, no. They just know that they have detention upcoming at some point in the indeterminate future.
So all they got for their misbehavior was
a lot of talking.
A lot of talking, and so the 3 other Gryffindors, they come into the dormitory and they're all like, oh, that was so cool, that was so amazing, blah, 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 blah. And Harry is at this point can't help but grin as well.
And that is how our chapter ends. So yeah, what do we learn here? Don't think about it too much, and why couldn't they get through the barrier? Those are our main themes of this chapter, I would say. Magic's a little wonky, and something stopped them. There you are. Anything else do we need to add?
Yes. Hogwarts is next to Inverness.
That's right. Somewhere up there in the Highlands of Scotland.
Very important.
Very important. If you're ever trying to go look for it, you won't be able to find it, of course, because there's Muggle repelling charms.
Unless you're not a Muggle.
Unless we have any non-Muggles listening, and hey, go for it, and let us know what you find out. All right.
Bye.
That'll be the end. We'll catch you guys next time. Later.